My path was never straightforward, though looking back now, the challenges woven through my early years steeled me for the tests of devotion I'd later face. I grew up in a cramped apartment, my single mother working tireless hours to put food on our table. Though she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, her embrace could still wash away my hardest days. To fund my education, I took odd jobs: waitressing, cashiering, anything that would cover textbooks. Design called to me through a high school art class, those creative glimpses lighting my way to university scholarships. I still vividly recall the swell of pride at my first graphic design internship when I could finally ease my mom's burdens. It was at that printing shop where I first met Daniel, a web developer who moonlighted on brochures for extra cash. I still smile thinking of our debates over font choices and color palettes amidst the steady din of machines. Romance wasn't instant, but friendship rooted deep over time until one magical winter dusk when friendship blossomed to love. Moved by the devotion of his care through my mother's passing the year prior, I soon became his wife. Now, gazing at streaked wallpaper and creaky floorboards in Daniel's ancestral home, I feel a spark of that old determination reigniting. We made this move to care for Rose, Daniel's mother struggling with illness, hoping to restore vibrance to her fading years while honoring family history. My mind fills with dreams for our own little ones racing up and down the stairs, gaining sanctuary in these rooms as generations had before. First, restoration is in order, but I feel equipped to make this house a home again. With Daniel navigating new challenges setting up his freelance web development business, I take charge of renovations with grit-forged confidence, plunging my hands into wall plaster and floor stains. As I steam aging covers off living room furnishings, uncovering oak bones sound beneath, I gain hope for what dedication and care can resuscitate, reminding me of the power of fighting for what matters when the going gets tough. Resilience pulses through my veins, channeling my mother's spirit. I am precisely where I need to be, beside my beloved Daniel, standing on the foundation of the future we will build piece by piece. In those early days, settling into the ancestral home, I often wondered if Daniel shared my vision for restoring the aging manor. While I embraced the hands-on work of transformation, he became consumed by computer code, his real passion. A local nonprofit had approached Daniel to overhaul their web presence, potentially opening the door for more clients. He toiled tirelessly into the night, mumbling about security patches and responsive frameworks. Though I couldn't contribute technically, I would appear at his side with freshly brewed coffee, massaging the tension from his shoulders before retiring alone. One evening, Daniel's frustration boiled over. Tossing headphones aside, he fumed. "They're asking for capabilities their budget can't support. Do they expect me to hack together solutions illegally?" I asked gently. "Can you explain the specific issues? Maybe I could provide an outside perspective." As Daniel clarified the nonprofit's feature requests compared to best practices, I mainly listened. Finally, I said, "Ultimately, only you can discern what's right for your business and this client, but perhaps there's a graceful way to set realistic expectations?" Daniel let out a sigh, then pulled me into an apologetic hug. "Thank you for hearing me out rather than judging. This project has occupied too much headspace lately. You've already done so much here." His eyes roamed the freshly painted walls where we envisioned our children's heights being marked. I assured Daniel his work was important for our family's future too. As I lay alone later, I hoped resolutely that, soon enough, we would be on the other side of this stressful season, happily building the life we had dreamed. Yet why did I have an unshakable pit in my stomach that more tests were on the horizon? I could practically hear my mother's voice whispering, "Tough times don't last, tough people do," echoed by creaks of this aging house. I pulled the covers tight, willing brighter days to come. Just as the last splotches of outdated wallpaper had been banished from the living room walls, finally revealing pristine ivory paint underneath, the fragile health precipitating our move here took a concerning turn. Daniel's mother, Rose, had always been petite, but over a matter of weeks it seemed her cheekbones sharpened and lap grew cavernous from shrinking appetite. On the worst nights, my sleep broke to the sounds of Daniel pacing downstairs as Rose struggled for breath. I'd give them space, knowing Daniel hated feeling helpless. Only when daylight broke would we embrace tearfully, hands intertwined in silent resolve. It surprised me when Rose asked to review my decorator fabric samples one morning, enthusing about the floral chintz patterns reviving childhood memories instead of resting. Yet the spark in her ease soothed my worries for a moment. Later, as Daniel recounted supply runs to the pharmacy, I asked about his father. I sensed tension there. Daniel revealed quietly, "Dad refuses most help, though I know his arthritis flares badly. He's always been stubbornly prideful. I check on their apartment when he allows." I suspected living here wasn't Daniel's parents' preferred arrangement either, but they made small sacrifices out of mutual devotion, just as Daniel and I aimed to do. My parents' relationship fractured painfully when adversity hit, so I vowed to tend carefully to the roots of this family who had warmly welcomed me. Little did I know just how severely that bond would be tested in mere weeks. The bank's loan approval for the downstairs remodel brought bubbly optimism for a spell. My steps grew lighter, crossing freshly tiled kitchen floors, though my smile faltered passing Daniel hunched over the computer with furrowed brow, night after night. Offering my shoulder got little response. Progress, unfortunately, doesn't always follow steady lines but jagged switchbacks. I meditated on maintaining daily faith through the unknown. If only glows of soft lantern light and gentle breezes could always shelter life's winding paths, illuminating the way ahead. Just when Daniel's freelance work seemed to be stabilizing, fresh storms rolled in. The client unexpectedly demanded extensive new features while refusing payment increases. I encouraged Daniel to stand firm calmly, though anger simmered beneath my encouragement. Simultaneously, his cousin Lily reappeared after years abroad. She always carried an air of entitlement, her gestures more showy than genuine, but Daniel felt obligated to host her in hopes of healing old rifts. At dinner, Lily admired house renovations mid-sentence while interrogating Daniel about his business. Her husband, Robert, a smooth talker I distrusted instantly, boasted of their international success. Finally, alone, I asked, "Does Lily know of your parents' health troubles or our financial investment here?" Daniel sighed. "I doubt it. She's been oddly interested in the house legacy recently given past tiffs over inheritance, but hopefully they'll move on soon." I wasn't so sure. Lily started meeting often with Daniel's parents once we revealed the renovation loans. One morning I noticed her eyeing recently restored crown moldings resentfully before forcing a saccharine smile. My instincts screamed she was manipulating this situation, ever consumed by competition with Daniel. My fears actualized days later. With Daniel away meeting his insistent client, Rose asked to speak privately. She revealed through tears, "We appreciate deeply all you've given Daniel, but Lily needs this house now, you see?" I was struck breathless by shock and anger. Before I could respond, Rose clasped my hands, pleading, "Don't think badly of us, dear. You've always felt like a daughter, but family loyalty runs so deep." In that excruciating pause, the floorboards creaked as if mirroring my heart tearing. I steeled my expression while gripped by remembered pains of abandonment and injustice. But this time, I refused to crumble silently. Both Minhamai and Daniel needed me to be starkly, unapologetically strong. My tongue felt leaden, forming the words to Daniel later that night, still stunned by his parents' request. His eyes mirrored my own grieved shock as the painful truth sank in. Lily had convinced them her extravagant global lifestyle somehow entitled her to this inheritance over us. Daniel worried for his parents' frail state being manipulated like pawns. Yet we had sacrificed too much sweat and savings restoring this home to abandon it without a fight. The next night, I faced Daniel's family, unveiling the substantial bank loan files. We took this on in good faith, investing our assets here instead of our own property. I kept my tone neutral and authoritative. Lily appeared like she'd swallowed vinegar as the numbers sank in. The home needed extensive repairs from neglect before it could fund her champagne wishes. Her arrogant smile faltered. For an instant, I felt satisfied watching her squirm. But Daniel's gentle strength guided me back from the cliff of bitterness. "Let's reflect carefully on what's fair and ethical here without accusations," he appealed to both sides. We agreed to reconvene tomorrow when emotions cooled. That night, wrapped in Daniel's arms, the future finally clarified like clouds parting. We'd gutsily built a life together many times over, coming from less. Surely we could replicate that wherever we landed, as long as we stood united. We located a tiny cottage on wooded acres owned by an eccentric painter Daniel had contracted for. Surprisingly inexpensive, the compact studio space felt comforting, evoking my childhood nooks where dreams germinated. I gazed delightedly as Daniel hung our wedding photograph alongside artwork left by the owner. She had welcomed our DI spirit, unlike his arrogant cousins. In that moment, with Daniel's steadfast devotion blazing in his smile, I released stale bitterness once and for all. This next chapter was ours for crafting however we chose, no dwelling in past wrongs, only moving onwards and upwards. Our cottage nestled at the edge of a struggling neighborhood, where many holding tight to their American dreams had slipped through the cracks. Yet despite the barred windows and foreclosure signs, vibrant life peeked through in wildflower boxes on fire escapes and old women cackling around card games on fold-out tables. I yearned to take root here, so I started volunteering at the community center offering design help. Soon, I had a class of eager teens, screen printing, empowering t-shirt slogans, and elderly folks sharing family photos to practice digital layouts. Laughing around picnic tables slapped together from reclaimed wood, we drowned out distant sirens with our plans. Meanwhile, Daniel built complex servers for local businesses unable to afford tech consultants. I watched him revive discussing jQuery tricks with an underslept single dad coding after his boys slept. Pride swelled in me at this humble revival of purpose. At home, we filled blank walls with postcards from residents' childhoods across the world. I basked in the hard-won comfort we had built, rich in spirit and sweat equity. One evening, the center director, Janine, asked if I could design flyers for an upcoming block party. "We want to celebrate what makes this place special," she said. In bold Vintage type, I spelled out, "Palmer Park, where community grows." I hoped Lily would scoff at such graphics, though even her scorn seemed trivial now. The night of the party glowed under strung lanterns. Seeing my flyer taped inside shop windows filled me with inexplicable joy. Neighbors crossed dividing lines, sharing spice blends, stories, and dance. Gazing at these bonds emerging, I realized this is what I had longed for my whole life: belonging. A few nights later, I awoke to murmured voices from our front room. Creeping out silently, I spotted Daniel consoling his father, Roy, on our weathered couch. Though I longed to embrace Roy seeing new lines etching his face, I honored their need for space. In the morning, Daniel recounted solemnly, "Dad's health is declining more rapidly. His doctors urged him to get affairs in order. Emotionally, he's distraught, believing Lily coerced them out of greed without considering repercussions." I ached for Roy's anguish. He had always gently welcomed me as a daughter. "Could you rebuild trust eventually?" I asked carefully. Daniel spoke after a long pause. "I think so, with time. Last night he seemed desperate to reconcile, apologizing profusely for not being stronger against Lily and Robert." I responded gently, "The blame rests on their manipulation, not your devotion as a son." Daniel nodded, looking years older, echoing my secret worries for how much more Roy could withstand. But a sad smile crept onto Daniel's face as he recalled Roy admiring our cobbled-together cottage paradise. Actually, Dad was surprised, realizing material wealth wasn't vital for our happiness once relationships fractured. I think this humble home reminded him family bonds outweigh any mansion. I breathed relief hearing this insight took root for Roy after decades of strained formality. Taking Danielle's hand gently, I said, "When life strips away fluff, we see what matters most remains standing tall." Danielle and I chose to stand by Roy in this grief while still building the life envisioned together. For once Lily's schemes had cleared the way for truer emotional connections, relationships now nurtured hopefully more prudently in this aftermath. To improve the mood of my husband's parents, I decided to help out and repaint the bathroom in their home in an invigorating citrus palette to combat the gray skies of the impending winter. As I sanded back layers of enamel, something metal glinted from underneath the vanity. Heart racing, I pried out a tarnished silver box engraved intricately with vines. Daniel was stunned when I showed my discovery over dinner. That crest? I think it belonged to my mother's family. The engraving must be over 100 years old, but how on earth did it end up hidden here? That night I turned the trinket gently in my hands, fascinated imagining what secrets it may reveal about Daniel's ancestry. Hoping to brighten Roy's loneliness, I asked if we could uncover the box's history together. My mother was intensely private about her lineage due to a scandal way back, Roy revealed. We always assumed valuable heirlooms had been sold off long ago to save face. His eyes grew misty upon recognizing engraving details from his childhood. You may have unearthed quite the Pandora's box, my dear, but we'd be honored to have you solve this little mystery. I began meticulously researching genealogical archives, trying to trace the family crest's origins. The tree was murky, but I pieced together tales of fortunes made and lost across continents over generations. One September afternoon, I struck gold discovering the metal box's link to a noble English dynasty tainted by rumors of illegal smuggling. Well, I'll be, marveled Roy, poring over scanned records arrayed across our cottage floor. As he grew animated retelling his mother's fragmented stories against these newly found artifacts, I glimpsed the man he must have been before age and heartbreak weathered him. This rediscovered family intrigue seemed to fan dormant flames of curiosity in him. Late that night, as Daniel embraced me tight, he whispered, "I'm endlessly awed by your bold resilience reshaping what our futures held, my darling girl." I traced the crumpled family crest in my palm silently as we drifted to sleep, tingling with anticipation about what long-buried secrets this next layers-lifting endeavor may reveal for us all. One bracing fall afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Daniel's mother, Rose. Through cracked static and muffled sobs, I parsed together that Lily had abandoned her caretaking role, leaving Rose bereft. While Daniel urgently arranged for home health assistance, my anger reignited towards his cousin. We soon learned what prodded Lily's disappearance. The ancestral home's heating and plumbing demanded repairs, far eclipsing her budget after years of neglect. I shook my head bitterly at karma's justice. Rose worried sick over mortgage struggles crushing arrogant Lily. Before long, Roy confirmed Lily's husband Robert had taken an overseas job to evade debts, while she boasted to friends of world travels. "It's just as well," Rose fretted. On her last visit, such terrible shouting matches shook the walls, it seemed. "I do pity her, Daniel, estranged in that great house." Daniel replied gently, "Her choices landed her there, Mama. Meanwhile, we've built truer bonds from rubble. Our family stands stronger." Roy gripped Daniel's shoulder, nodding firmly despite weariness carved into his face. As we celebrated the winter holidays in our snug cottage, joy pierced sorrow at Lily's isolation. I clung fiercely to those I loved while heavy snow cradled a sleeping earth. On New Year's Eve, the doorbell startled our Scrabble game. There stood Lily, bedraggled with reddened eyes, imploring desperately for cash to restart her ruined reputation. My lips tightened seeing this woman so haughty before now beaten low from judged errors. Before I responded, Daniel drew himself up steadily. "We forgive your past selfishness, Lily, but understand real family means enduring loyalty through life's storms, not riches tossed around conveniently." Her eyes dropped with dawning remorse that no money could erase. As she turned humbly towards the dark, swirling blizzard, I glimpsed the long road back from self-inflicted ruin she now faced largely alone. The creaking manor seemed poised to stand starkly empty as a monument to wayward greed for foreseeable days yet ahead. On a crisp April morning, Daniel surprised me with the keys to a cozy bungalow at the neighborhood's edge. "It's high time we have a place truly ours," he whispered, eyes glinting eagerly as we stepped inside the little haven he had been secretly renovating with the community's help. Over the next weeks, familiar creativity flowed as I etched colorful murals across freshly painted walls. We filled each room with pieces honoring our separate pasts now woven together. My mother's stitched blankets alongside Daniel's father's sturdy carved bookcase. The day we officially moved in, a rare spring warmth glowed golden. On impulse, Daniel and I dug into the rocky soil out front to plant a young peach tree, picturing summer days harvesting its fruit to feed neighborhood kids. As we lovingly patted down earth across its wiry roots, I knew we had finally planted sustainable seeds of affection, resilience, and community to carry this family forward for generations, thriving out of our own nourished soil. Even Lily's rare phone calls from Europe grew less barbed and more wistful, hearing of our home rooted firmly. Meanwhile, Daniel's freelance web cooperative provided steady income to care for aging parents happily in their familiar routines nearby. One golden dusk, as Daniel chased giggling children around our tree's lengthening branches, I paused, overcome with gratitude, for the wisdom time's pressing challenges bore, for the light only unveiled fully through life's storms, for this shared journey ahead, however winding or steep, the next mile climbed, together always into the unknown mystery, yet anchored in tested devotion, standing sure.